What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another post game here on Mets Central, and the Mets drop game 149, 3-2 to the Texas Rangers. Once again, finding a way to lose because the thing that they have done all season long, or I should say all season long, most of the season though, since May, all they've done is find ways to lose. And here is another latest example. You have the manager who has no idea what he's doing right now. You have players that are not able to execute at all at the plate. You have a failure of a job by your closer that has been your backbone throughout a lot of this season. And that's the thing that's really funny about all this, isn't it? Is that the thing that I was saying to myself this entire game, where will it go wrong? Because the 1-0 lead wasn't good enough. You have Juan Soto hit that home run, and it's still in my mind. Where does it go wrong? And sure enough, look no further than the 8th and ninth inning where it goes wrong. And once again, of course, today's the day that Diaz blew a save. That's the thing that was in my mind. It's like, of course, he's going to blow a save today because it's just so on brand for the way this team has been lately. And it's just that simple. And the thing that I've talked about a lot, Matt as well, on this channel, and we talked about it with Carson from Mets Weekly too. When we did our show, we really had the biggest discussion about this, but we've been saying a lot lately. This team does not win close games. And long and behold, here it is. And the funny part is because earlier in the year, my biggest complaint was okay, you're winning games, but a lot of these games are too close to games. Like you're going to need to blow out the bad teams, especially. And now all of a sudden, you wish they were winning these close games, which they can't do. But I also said the reason why you can't rely on winning the close games all the time earlier in the season is because it's not a sustainable recipe. And the reason why it's not a sustainable recipe is because your pitching is naturally not going to go perfect every single time. So the bottom line is, as much as it sucks that Edwin Diaz failed you, as much as it sucks that you have a manager who, again, has no clue what he's doing with managing a bullpen or substituting throughout games, which we'll talk about as well. At the end of the day, as well, you have a hitting philosophy that doesn't work, and you have players that are not executing regardless of the hitting philosophy. So, what it comes down to is the sooner you accept the fact that this team is more likely than not going to miss the playoffs, which I'm sure a lot of you that listen to me kind of feel that way because you wouldn't be able to tolerate me if you don't feel that way because I'm usually more on the pessimistic side. Again, I don't like to be this way, but circumstances are what they are. But the sooner you're able to accept that, the better. You'll feel much better because then you know it's coming. Like that's the thing again about this game. You knew at some point it was coming. You just didn't know when and where. But you wrapped up another series loss here. That's confirmed no matter what you do tomorrow. Schedule, you play the Padres next. I mean, good luck there. Good luck there. And you could be out of a playoff spot as soon as tonight. The Mets could be out of a playoff spot tonight because they are tied right now with the Giants. They hold the tiebreaker. But although I think the Giants actually have 2 games in hand, so I don't know how that goes. But either way, it's listed that they're tied right now. It's listed that they are tied. And the Mets have the tiebreaker. And the fact that we're even in the spot to where it's come to that, it's unbelievable. And the fact that they are 3 games above 500 now, when they were 21 games above 500, is unbelievable. But no, you have Brandon Nimmo saying yesterday, we're not playing like a playoff team. We got to be better. Carlos Mendoza saying after, I don't remember which loss it was. I mean, there's a mountain of them lately, but after one of the losses, yeah, I have to be better. I'm not doing a good enough job. I get that you have to say that to the media, but actions speak louder than words, and the actions have not backed it up. And the actions have shown me that either one, you are gutless and the message isn't getting through, or two, you're not as good of a group as we thought you were and we need you to be. And the bottom line is, I think the latter is, I think both honestly are kind of true because there are talented baseball players in there. There are. But I also do think there are some players that simply are not good enough as well. Because when you look at this rotation, and like I said yesterday, how it's constructed, it's not good enough. But here you have Brandon Sproat going out here, giving you 6 innings of scoreless ball. Had a lot of help from his defense throughout the game, but he's at 70 pitches and you decide to not even give him a chance to go in the 7th inning. That to me was just one of the first of many things that went wrong in this game with Carlos Mendoza. I get he allowed 2 base runners in that last inning, but you're telling me against a Rangers lineup that is not featuring any of their premier players at the moment because they have injuries to Semien and Corey Seager. You're telling me you can't throw Brandon Sproat out there to try to get through that inning, especially when the bullpen is as taxed as it is. He earned that 7th inning. And I honestly think it's a huge slap in the face that he did not let Brandon Sproat go out there. What else did Carlos Mendoza do wrong today? How about as well, you have the decision. What inning was it where he decided to take Vientos out? Where was that? I think, yeah, it was the 8th inning. So in the 8th inning, he elects to take Vientos out for defensive purposes to put Acuna in. And naturally, there was a ball that went into left field. I think that was the Langford double. And if Mark Vientos was there, who, by the way, played good defensively at third base today, and I get that he is not the best defensive third baseman, but I thought he played good enough today at third base to where, did you really need to do that? And especially in a close game where everything's going wrong for you, you might need Mark Vientos to hit again later in this game. And why are you putting Acuna at third base nonetheless? And it goes over his head because he's not tall enough to grab it. And it could have backfired as well in the 9th inning. It didn't because Mauricio ended up getting a hit. But again, it's one of those things where, okay, the decision went right for Mendoza, but the process makes no sense because I'm sorry, I like my chances more with Mark Vientos up there in the bottom of the 9th than Ronnie Mauricio. And we won't know if Vientos would have got an extra base hit instead. We won't know what would have happened. But it's the process. It's the process itself of why are you electing to put Acuna in when it's a close game and you might blow it with the way things are going lately. Now, what else did he do wrong? Tyler Rogers comes in the 8th inning, which I disagreed with off the rip because to me, you guys know how I feel if you've been watching the channel enough. I want Edwin Diaz facing the top of the order, which eventually did not matter. But I wanted Edwin Diaz in that spot. Rogers comes in. He has an unfortunate catcher's interference that didn't help him out. Wyatt Langford gets a double. And then you have Jock Peterson get a sac fly. Jake Berger ends up striking out. You have an opportunity here to leave Rogers in. To me, it was a no-brainer to leave him in because he found a way to rebound. One of the things didn't go his way there with the catcher's interference. He allowed a double to the Rangers' best hitter in the lineup. And you're telling me that you couldn't let Rogers face Josh Young? So then you have Mendoza over managing here. Edwin Diaz comes in, throwing a wild pitch, walking a batter, and then you have the double from Tellez, which the writing was on the freaking wall there. It ends up being a ground roll double. Probably would have brought in a second run there. And then, I mean, the eighth inning, the bottom of the eighth, that is. Did anyone think for a second when they had two guys on and Cedric Mullins is coming up? Did anyone think for a minute that they were going to score a run there? I sure as hell no, I didn't think so. Because Cedric Mullins sucks. Because Cedric Mullins swings a string of spaghetti at the plate. The top of the ninth. Diaz allowing a single. You have the bunt from Hellman. And then Josh Smith strikes out. Wyatt Langford comes up, torches the Mets again, makes it 3-2. And I didn't need to see anymore. I did not think for a second. And then once we get to the bottom of the ninth, same scenario, two guys on. Did anyone think for a second that Brandon Nimmo was coming through with the way that he's swinging the bat lately? Did anybody think Brandon Nimmo was coming through? And for the at bat to be that piss poor, even more of a problem. But like I said, they don't win close games. They don't find ways to win. They find ways to lose, which is what a bad baseball team does. And there's a reason they have one of the worst records in Major League Baseball since that June 13th date, which honestly dates back further. They are a well below 500 team since May 1st as well. So it's not even like the June 13th thing is a made up thing at this point, which, funny enough, we're to the exact day, a couple of months removed from that exact day. But this has been spiraling. And I saw a tweet earlier, and it did not clock with me how bad it has been for Pete Alonso since that June 13th date. I didn't even realize it, and maybe it's a false stat, which I want to make that clear. I did not fact check this, so I could be spewing something false. So correct me if I'm wrong. And honestly, I don't know where I could even fact check it to begin with. I guess I could go to StatMuse, but I saw something about Pete Alonso's on base percentage being below 300 since June 13th. Let's see if that's correct, if I could find it. No, that's the entire season. Because I didn't type in that. Yeah, it is correct. He has a 294 on base percentage, which might have plummeted tonight. I don't know if it updated, but a 294 on base percentage since June 13th. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out at the end of the year. Because it's going to be a long offseason. I'm saying it. It's going to be a long offseason. And how about Lindor, too? Costly mistakes in the field in that ninth inning when it matters most. I mean, you can't make it up. Everything's just going wrong. And he has not done a lot at the plate either. It was just Juan Soto today. It was Juan Soto, and that's it. Nothing else mattered. And you honestly got a happy birthday run with the first run, with the fact that it ended up hitting off of Lindor going into third base there, and then deflected a little bit further into foul grounds. You got the benefit of the doubt of that. Just pathetic. 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position today. Very disappointing. And then Marte, too. He came up in a big spot. And once again, he doesn't do anything. Alvarez, since coming back from the IL, has been useless. Jose Siri stinks. Jose Siri, I do not have any interest in him being back next year. Go give Cody Bellinger whatever he wants this offseason because I cannot stand this garbage in center field anymore. I don't care what Bellinger wants. Blank check. Get me a real center fielder, which again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this because we are going to have a very long offseason, folks. Because what seemed like a simple task of just needing to win, I said it a couple days ago, probably needing to go 10-7, which should be a simple task if you are a good baseball team. Let me make this clear. I didn't think it was a simple task for this Mets team. For a competent baseball team and for a team making this much money, you would think 10-7, like that should be doable, right? Like 10-7's pretty simple. Well, since then, I believe they've dropped 4 or 5 games now. So what needed to be 10-7, I don't know what it's going to need to be. And that was just to comfortably make it. Like that's not an actual, you know, thing. That was kind of like a guesstimate type thing. But now you have 2 losses available for you to complete that 10-7 task. And I could tell you for free, they are not going to be doing that. They are going to lose more than 2 games down the stretch here because this team is not good enough to be that way down the stretch. It is that simple. This is the most miserable. We're in for the most miserable month of Mets baseball imaginable. And it is absolutely insane that it is this way. But this is the way it is. And all I could say is there's going to be a lot of conversations this offseason because this team ain't good enough. And I don't care what coaches go. I don't care what players go. I just want changes. I just simply want big changes this offseason because this is just simply not good enough what you have here. Pete Alonso, again, we'll have that conversation there, but since June 13th, that's sub 300 OBP since June 13th. That's disgusting. For a guy who started off on a tear where it looked like he might be the front runner for the MVP. He might win MVP. Okay, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of talking about these same guys because I've said what I've said for the most part the past few nights. There's going to be time this winter to dissect this and talk about what they need to change, who needs to go. But like I said, I really, as long as the young pitchers stay and Juan Soto stays, the rest of it, I really do not care. I really don't because, like I tweeted as well, and some people might point to last year making the NLCS and say, how do you want to change, blow things up and change things to that degree after making the NLCS? That was an outlier. That was the outlier, and you have to accept it because we saw similar traits in 2021. We saw in 2022 this script play out to a degree where they fumbled the division, which they didn't really have the division this year, but you get my point. Where they had a miserable September. That's the script that I kind of mean is the same. And stumbled their way into the wild card and got embarrassed by the Padres. 2023, they never even really had a chance of making the playoffs, just miserable. Last year, we know what happened. But the sooner we can accept, because we have to remember and remind ourselves as well that last year was not all sunshine and rainbows. They really had a good second half and a good October. And that's really it. In the group of all the years that I mentioned, they had half of a good season with this group of players. That's the context that matters more than just simply looking at last year and saying they made the NLCS. You have to look big picture here. The front office has to look big picture in that regard. And if they don't, we have even bigger problems if the front office can't acknowledge that. We have huge problems. And we already have huge problems as is potentially with the front office because David Stearns, every single offseason acquisition, every single deadline acquisition has fell right on their damn face. So we already have questions as is. This offseason, to me, is going to make or break how I feel entirely about David Stearns, and I've made that clear. But all I know is that big changes have to be made. And there are still games to be played. That's the insane part. I'm talking about this. I'm in off-season mode, and there are still games to be played. But how could I sit here and not start looking towards the off-season? How can I not do that? When there's, 13 games left to play, and this is the garbage? And again, it's beyond this season. You have to look at the big picture of the first half of last year and the 3 seasons before that with the same group of players. You have to you just can't ignore that. I at least can't. And I don't think the front office can either. It's that simple. This team is fundamentally flawed. They're not coached well. And it's a train wreck in that regard. Because the fact that we have to sit here and say a DH that was washed up and just retired and started playing pickleball, that was the make or break of last year. A Latin pop star who's hitting with a 600 OPS, might even be below 600 OPS in San Diego right now. Those guys were the difference between last year's team making the NLCS and not, because those guys brought leadership. That tells you all you need to know about this group. And that tells you, most importantly, no leaders in that room. None at all. So all this talk about Lindor for captain, it's over. Done. I don't want to hear Lindor for captain ever again. There's nothing telling me this guy's captain material. And you had Soto praising Marte for his leadership. Well, he should be gone next year. And if that's your leadership, that's a problem as well. And that's where things really need to make a change most of all, is you need guys that are willing to take the bull by the damn horn in that clubhouse and actually be a leader. But there is no leader. And it's very obvious with the way that they're talking to the media and nothing's changing. Because last year when they would do that, we saw a completely different team on the diamond most times the next day. At least in the second half. When, again, they had those veteran leaders. This time around, they don't. And that's why I can't sit here and say this team's comparable. I can't sit here and just be like, oh, well, this is the same as last year's team, so leave it alone. I've ranted for almost 30 minutes now. Well, let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. So we got a lot here. Can't make it up with this team. Wasn't Mendoza supposed to get them going? Sure, right? He has no clue what he's doing. And when the Mets complete this collapse, and I'm using the word when they complete this collapse, he has to go. I'm sorry, he has to go. Because you cannot have this guy being the quote unquote man of the ship, the captain of the ship, whatever you want to say. He cannot be the one leading and taking control of that clubhouse, because there is more data of him not being good versus the other way around. Again, half of last season where there was still a lot of questions with process things that he did, but half of last season the first half was a train wreck. You have now a full year looking like a train wreck with Mendoza. And all I've seen is he's he ain't a leader. He ain't a good enough manager to get the most out of these guys. Everyone on this coaching staff needs to go besides Richardson tonight. The ship has sailed. I know you're just exaggerating with that part, and I know that you don't mean it, but unfortunately, the ship sailed with firing guys mid-season. But this is why I was screaming about it in July. This is why I was screaming about it in August, because you can't wait to let this boil over. And they let it boil over. And now what are you going to do? Fire Chavez and Barnes with 12 games left? No, because it's not going to do anything. Now it's not going to do anything. If you fired them earlier, you would have gave whoever the hitting coach is, the interim hitting coach, you would have gave that guy time to, or even if it's just straight up a new hitting coach, you would have gave that guy time to implement his hitting philosophies into this lineup, and they would have had time to adapt in that regard. Now it's too late. You're not going to be able to do that with 12 games left. But this is why it is better to be proactive instead of reactive, like we talked about at nauseum. And they weren't. And that's where I have questions with David Stearns, especially when this hitting coach is as arrogant as he is, talking about online their hitting philosophy. Who does that? What hitting coach does that? This game is on Mendy in the offense. You are damn right, Brian. They're going to finish with a losing record. I can't rule it out. How am I supposed to rule that out? Because is 6 wins to go 500 plausible right now? I can't say it's likely. I mean, they should beat the Nationals. They should beat the Marlins. But no, they're not going to. We just saw them lose to both of those teams. Because this team, all they do, and this is also part of why they're in the predicament they're in, they fucked around way too much when they were playing these bad teams. And that's why when people say it's just one game, it's just one game, it's more than just one game. It's multiple games of not showing up when you need to. These it's just one game type of losses boil over into this. Not gonna lie, if I was Juan Soto, I'd be furious going from a World Series team to a team missing the playoffs despite him having a 40 home run season in a quote unquote down season nonetheless. Yes, I agree. I can't disagree with that at all. Is anyone surprised at this point? Time and time again, this team has committed self inflicted damage to themselves, and the coaches can't help clean things up. I'm not surprised at all. And you're right about everything you said. This coaching staff is horrible. It's a 15-year deal. I can't sit here and say that I can't come to that conclusion until I see how the 15 years play out. But early on, I mean, yeah, if I were him, I'd be pretty pissed off right now. I'd be pretty pissed off that I signed that much money and you don't field a good enough roster around me. And I don't blame this on Diaz one bit either. You know why I also don't blame this on Diaz? Because it's hard to do your job when you've barely done it as of lately because all this team does is lose games. And this is the first time in ages where you actually had a lead to protect. And a lot of it's rust. They're not in full control yet, but if they win tonight, yes, they would be. But yes, they tied them, which is embarrassing enough. And this is the point. He has barely pitched, and now you're asking him to get multiple outs. This manager is such a joke. 7 games left against Texas, Cubs, Padres. Need to win 5 of 7 or they can't make the playoffs. And I can tell you right now, they're not winning 5 of 7. And this is why I feel safe to say they're missing the playoffs because at the end of the day, they have to sweep 1 or 2 of these series here to realistically have a chance. Probably more likely 2 series. And is anybody going to sit here and tell me they're going to sweep 2 series? Pass me whatever you're smoking if you think so. I would love some of that stuff. Hate the Mets, fire Mendoza's bum ass. Well, you might get your wish, but I'm not sure. This team has me wanting to watch the Tank Bowl Penguins. This has me wanting to watch. This has me wanting to watch basketball more than I ever have in my life. But I got to be careful for what I wish for, apparently, because I was saying during the Ranger season I was excited for this, and now here we are. So, am I excited for Knicks hoops? I don't know. I am a bit, but who knows how that's going to go at this point? Because at the end of the day, when you think you know your team well enough, you clearly don't. Because the Knicks should be clearly at the top of the East, but I'm not going to sit here and sell myself on it because now I have trauma between my hockey team and my baseball team. So I can't even sit here and convince myself, yeah, you know what? I'm excited for that. When you rely on your rookies to save your season, you don't deserve to even sniff the playoffs. 1,000,000% right. And that's one of the plenty issues with this team. Yes, Lindor did need to make that catch. A brainless goof. Mendoza has no brains. Stand there with his okay, creepy blue eyes and triple chin. I'm not gonna go after the guy personally. You guys can do that. I'm not gonna go after the guy on a personal standpoint, but I'm not happy with the way that he's managing baseball games. I can tell you that. This team teases more than a strip club. To be honest with you, though, they're not even doing a tease anymore. They're just outright sucking. And you know what? You got to appreciate that. I'd almost rather this to a degree than the tease. Pete, Nimmo, McNeil, and many others need to go. It's impressive how often this core group collapses. I agree with every single guy that you named. I don't know if Nimmo's going to waive that no trade clause, but I'm having the conversation this offseason. If I'm management, I'm seeing if he'd waive because no thank you to this anymore. I'm tired of his streakiness. I'm tired of the way that he plays the field. Nah, I'm good. Mendy said he took Sproat out due to the velo dropping and the hard hit balls in the sixth. I don't agree. At 70 pitches, you have to at least let him start the seventh. Yeah, no, that to me is just not a good enough reason. It's just simply not. Because especially when it's nowhere and run ball, let me tell you something. There's going to be a time where Brandon Sproat's going to have to learn to deal with that if his velo drops throughout outings. There's going to be a time he has to learn to navigate through that. And when your bullpen is as taxed as it is, and when it sucks as much as it has lately, not that again I fault really Diaz at all with how little he's pitched, but you have to keep him in that game. I wish we could just fast forward and finish the season because I am tired of it. Mullins wasn't really close to those pitches. He swung at no confidence. He's horrible. I'd rather see a pitcher hit than Mullins as well. Mullins, Siri, both of those guys are both of those guys are just a complete and utter joke. Yeah, and they don't win games when they're trailing. That's the other way you knew. Got a lot of comments, Sam. You guys are killing it tonight. I appreciate the support. Leave a like if you haven't subscribed. Definitely a longer post game show here, but I mean, this is where we are. People are tuned in when they're losing. That's the only benefit when they do this type of bullshit. Because in 2022, it was the same exact thing, even though I was covering that on a different channel. But in 2022, when they were falling apart, ah, the views skyrocketed. I wonder why. People just love to see the misery. But I get it. I get it. It's entertaining. But I also think that I'm past the point of getting angry, as you guys could tell. I'm a lot more calm and I'm a lot more like, because I just expected it. And I just am now every time they take the diamond to where what's the point of getting worked up now? It's frustrating inside. It's frustrating to watch. But what is the point anymore? Yeah, Lindor cannot be the captain. I'd be fine if the only players that come back are Lindor, Soto, and Diaz. To me, and this is just me, I really do not care beyond Soto and the young pitchers. I really do not care who's back and who's not. But that's just me. Pete has a 103 WRC plus since June 13th, playing at just above league average over the last 3 months while being paid 30 million for this year is horrible. Yeah. And this is why go ahead and opt out. Go opt out. Get your money somewhere else. I have no desire to deal with this anymore. Mendoza. It's not easy right now, especially when you're not able to finish the job in a game you felt like you had, and then before you know it, you're behind. A guy that has no answers. We need to have everyone on this team know that this is terrible. They need to take accountability. They don't know how to because there's no leaders in that room. Yeah, this is what made or makes. If this is what makes or breaks your team, you have huge issues. I tried to sit here and trust the process. I don't trust the process, and now I need to. I need to be proven that the process is good enough from the GM standpoint, if that's what you're talking about. Because the in-game process by Mendoza, I mean, that's just like well known. That's horrible. That I don't need to see further proof with. Yeah, Mendoza has no answers because he doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no clue what he's doing. Yeah, Mendy spoke like a true loser. He is. All right, wrapping things up here. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow, probably talking about another loss. So, thank you everyone. See you guys in the next one.